recently all the rave has been about the recent layoffs that ESPN has divvied out. So, it was a long list of people that got laid off. Top of that list was like notable names that we are familiar with, whether it's Jeff Van Gundy, Jalen Rose, Keyshawn Johnson, Max Kellerman, and even Todd McShay, Suzie Kolber, Steve Young. These are all off the top of the head. Obviously, you can see here on the screen. I shared it for you guys. But, it's a lot deeper than just, money issues and Pat McAfee coming along. And it's a lot more than that. I was thinking about this a lot. There's a shift happening in the entertainment business right now where a lot of the cable subscriptions that these companies were so used to, cashing in, they don't have that no more. People aren't watching as much TV as they used to, especially when it comes to cable. People are cutting the cord at a rapid pace, even faster than a lot of these studios had predicted. So now they're in a panic and they're going into massive consolidation when it comes to talent, when it comes to staff. This has been happening not just recently, but this has been happening over several years. So it's funny to me where people got up in arms about this latest news because, yeah, there's a lot more notable names that you are familiar with. But the reality is ESPN's been laying off people for quite some time. In 2015, they had massive layoffs. Remember that? 2015, it was over 300 people. But it was staffer workers, people behind the cameras, producers, things of that sort. So, it was big in the industry at the time when I was working and people was hearing, all of this stuff because those are normal people. Those are people like you and I. They're not celebrities, former players, or any of that type of stuff. They're just, regular people like you and I who are, making a daily, living. So when that happened, that kind of threw everybody off in the industry, in the entertainment business, in the media business. Then follow that up, and a couple more years later, then they started to lay off their first batch of talent, on-screen talent, in 2017. Remember that? Trent Dilfer got the axe. You had people like Ed Warder who got the axe, and that just was like, whoa, man, ESPN is laying people off like that. They're laying off some of our favorite on-screen personalities. Whoa, what's happening? So the point is of me bringing that up is that this consolidation has been happening over the last few years. Now it's just accelerating at a more rapid pace because of the steady decline of cable subscriptions. That's all it is. It's simple math. If the math ain't mathing, then they gotta, do extreme measures like they're doing now, which is extreme cuts, which usually happens, unfortunately, with high earners or just employees in general. Either executives don't get cuts, executives don't get fired, workers get fired. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. But like I was saying, you have the consolidation of cable subscriptions as a whole that is bringing down the industry because sports is getting more costly. You have all of this stuff happening where the change of viewership, the change of behaviors when it comes to consumers and viewers. You have all of these things that are currently happening in the marketplace. But not just that, you also have the cost of sports that's going up. So you have a really nasty dynamic if you're an executive, a television executive, or you're in charge of some production studio or just anything massive on that level, because now you're faced with a dilemma of, okay, the steady revenue stream that we were accustomed to getting in our coffers when it comes to cable subscriptions, we no longer can depend on that anymore because the cable market is dwindling. Now we have to rely a little bit more on streaming, which is kind of in its infancy and it's kind of right now building out. It's not all the way to its fullest potential. So you have all of these things happening with production studios. They're like, bro, we're not going to pay these high salaries. We're losing customers at a rapid pace. And on top of all of that, that constant loss that we're accumulating or that we're getting, the entertainment that we have to put out, the sports leagues, the NBA or the NFL or all of these big organizations, they're only getting more expensive. They're getting more expensive. It's like inflation for the entertainment business. They got to pay that inflationary cost, which is sports. And something's got to give at some point because people aren't watching as much as they used to. And that even goes for sports. Sports numbers have declined over the past few years as well. People aren't watching as much. Now I don't know if that's because I think that's a lot to do with not having cable subscriptions. You don't have ESPN to watch Monday Night Football anymore. You don't have ESPN to watch all your late night NBA games. Maybe people are going to friends' houses to watch these things, or maybe they're just going to the bar to watch these things, or maybe they're just not watching at all. This is the things that a lot of these places have to worry about, like ESPN, Fox Sports, and even NBC. So it's a lot of stuff that they have to worry about. When you pay the NFL multiple billions of dollars, when you pay the NBA multiple billions of dollars, it's got to come from somewhere. And if your customer base is shrinking, then you know who's going to fill that? Your work staff. And that's all that is with this whole thing. Another thing that was kind of strange to me is just on a side tangent that I thought was kind of interesting and unique. You could take it to wherever you want to take it, but it's mighty ironic to me. I was thinking about all of these interesting layoffs. Like, for instance, let's bring up Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith was let go once upon a time, years and years and years ago. This is before he was asked to come on First Take. He speaks about it on his own show. Like, it was almost career ending what ESPN had did to him at first. And, credit to him, he was able to resurrect his career and, become the massive star that he is now today. But what I noticed is that, everyone over there has felt some kind of pressure when it comes to being released in the past or maybe be potentially being released in the future. And like even Stephen A., I use him again as an example. He brought this up in his future. In his show recently, like, hey, the layoffs are not done. They're still coming. Hell, I might even be a part of that. Speculation has his name kind of floating out there as far as another person to get the axe. But what I found interesting through it all was, a name that seems to go unmentioned a lot. And I just thought about it today, like, man, his name is never brought up when it comes to layoffs. Why is that? Mike Greenberg. Greeny. Greeny seems to always avoid these massive layoffs somehow. I don't know why. It can't be talent, because he's not more talented than a Jalen Rose, for example, when he did a lot of shows with Jalen Rose. Jalen Rose used to come on Greenberg's show. Get up. And now, Jalen Rose had a lot of versatility, doing radio stuff, doing inside, NBA Countdown, doing all these different shows. It wasn't just one or two things. It was multiple things. And I assure you, I didn't look up Mike Greenberg's, I didn't do a pocket watch on Mike Greenberg's salary, but I'm pretty sure he makes more than Jalen Rose. So I don't know, man. Mike Greenberg seems to avoid these layoffs all the time. I don't know why. Maybe he's friends with people, in higher places. That could be the case. Let's be real. Or maybe he's just not as significant enough to, be cut. I don't know what it is, but I find it hard to believe that, his salary has never been looked at when it comes to these cuts. So, that's just a side tangent, just a thing that was kind of just rolling in my mind. Like, wow, Mike Greenberg is like, man, I want to know who his agent is. What kind of pictures or what kind of files he has in his cabinets where it allows him to be immune to all of this, But anyway, just a few thoughts about the ESPN layoffs and how, the industry as a whole has been kind of consolidating. It's more than just the layoffs. It's just we're in a shifting period where people's behaviors have changed when it comes to how they consume the products that they like to consume. And ESPN is a casualty of that. And who knows, the rumors are, Bob Iger might even sell ESPN. He's floated that idea out there. Like, hey, it might be up for sale. I don't know. It depends. And, basically, whoever comes dangling the right price, ESPN could be up for sale. So that would be very interesting if someone was to throw a price out there. You probably won't hear anything now because we're in such a consolidation period as far as inflation is concerned. Inflation is hurting companies as well. Not as much as normal people like you and I, but it's hurting companies. It's hurting companies as far as borrowing money and things like that because, the rate to borrow money is extremely high. It's even high for them. So, making acquisitions or doing anything of that nature on that type of level when it comes to finances is very difficult for most companies right now. A lot of companies are just consolidating and try to hold on and wait until things get a little more smoothed out. So I don't know who the hell would be suited to purchase an ESPN. Who could take it to the next level? I mean, obviously you think about the usual suspects, Fox Sports, Fox as a whole, maybe an outside player like ESPN, or YouTube. But YouTube just spent billions of dollars to get Sunday Ticket, so I don't think Google is trying to spend more money like that. So Amazon could be a player. Amazon could purchase it. They did purchase the rights of Thursday Night Football. You got Apple. Apple purchased the rights to, Major League Soccer, and they did it on the cheap. So, and we all know how much money Apple has in general. So, would not be surprised if Apple becomes a player. And I think Apple would be really good place for ESPN to be at as far as on a quality level. I think Apple just has a really good sense of, where they want to go with things. But it would definitely restrict commentators, and it wouldn't allow them to be more personable. So I don't know if Apple would be overall the place for it, but who knows? I'm definitely going to be following any latest developments as far as what ultimately happens with ESPN, because I do think that Disney's finally at a place where they may actually sell ESPN, and where it ends up, who knows?